Hello and welcome to a Wednesday SJU. We've got Kim here, we've got Lon here. You know, we don't have a new episode of an MCU show to talk about this week.
Oh my God.
But don't worry, guys. We're still going to talk about the MCU. Nothing can stop that.
Just be ridiculous of it.
Right. There's a multiverse of possibilities here. Remember last year when there was no MCU, there was nothing new for the first time in a decade. Well, there's been a lot now. We're just a little over halfway through the year, and there's been 3 TV shows and a movie. There's been 21 episodes of TV and a 2-hour movie, and we've got 3 more shows and 3 more movies to come just this year. So I think we're going to be good on getting new content from them. That doesn't seem to be a problem. But we thought we'd do kind of a check-in now that we've had a pretty good taste of Phase 4 so far with all this content, as the kids like to say. So we're going to jump into here to what Ryan has dubbed the multi-annual MCU awards. I guess that's because we could do this like every 2 months if we wanted to.
A lot of shows to fill. Yeah, a lot of
This is our Q2 check-in. Once per quarter.
Exactly.
Once per fiscal quarter, yeah.
Yes. We're just getting into Q3. We're going to do a report on Q1 and Q2. So we got some categories here, although we're going to play pretty fast and loose with this. And jump around
behind the scenes, I did not know we were doing this until like 10 minutes ago. So I don't have a lot of there's not envelopes down here with all of my
Don't worry, I knew like 45 minutes ago.
Bryce Waterhouse is not standing back there with briefcases ready to go.
There was a couple categories I cut because I was like, man, I think we're just going to all be going, like trying to think about stuff.
Best alligator. Like, oh, okay, I know that one. I think I have that
one. Best child Loki. Although there were 2. Anyway, though, so we're going to kick this off with best use of a returning character, which I think is a good one here because none of these so far have starred anyone who was really well, except Black Widow. But most of these are pretty peripheral side characters. Who has been your favorite use here of a character we already knew, but maybe got more to see in this Phase 4 so far? Oh, Ryan is reminding, good warning here. General spoiler warning. We're going to talk about everything that's come out so far MCU-wise this year. So your Loki, your Falcon Winter Soldier, WandaVision, your Black Widow, it's all on the table, guys. But, I think most of you are all in at this point. So, yes, best use of a returning character. Guys, what's been your favorite?
I mean, I would say, if I can, the Contessa, because she returned in Black Widow, right?
That's a tricky. You're taking away your next category by that.
I mean, I'm going to allow this, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
Well, you're going to have to allow it because it's my nomination for this category. And
fair enough.
Because I mean, obviously in normal circumstances, had there not been a pandemic, these two appearances would have occurred the opposite way around, right?
Yeah, we would have met Contessa May 2020 in Black Widow, and then seen her again in Falcon Winter Soldier. But everything's topsy-turvy these days, so why not?
Yeah, and I don't think it makes any difference. And what I like, she's funny. She's gonna, she's got the potential to be a complete super bitch. And I like that she's, Nick Fury style, coming in and rounding up a team of evil people to do her bidding, Dark Avengers or not, we'll find out. So it has nice echoes of the start of the MCU as we go into Phase 4 with the Nick Fury callbacks.
Right. What about you, Lon?
One character I thought it was really fun to see her pop up was Io, I believe is how you pronounce her name, from Black Panther, the Dora Milaje member who shows up by surprise in Falcon and Winter Soldier. She got to do the cool move where we see that they put a kill switch into Bucky's arm just in case he ever gets out of line, and you have to disable it. And I just thought that was like an unexpected. I read up so much on these shows, I kind of know a lot of what's coming. I did not know we were going to get some Black Panther crossover there, and I thought that was really fun.
I'm gonna go with Wanda, just because it was one of those things where it's like I love Elizabeth Olsen and I love Wanda in the comics, but in the movies she had just been kind of around and she had a couple cool moments, but we certainly didn't go in depth with her. And I just thought, wow, what a great sort of spotlight for her. And they clearly had an agenda here to be like, hey, we're going to make her a much more important and powerful character. And, going forward, you're going to pay attention to her. And I think they accomplished that. And then my little runner-up is Darcy, just because I always thought she was funny in the Thor movies. I think she was a little bit divisive. Some people thought she was funny. Some people thought she was annoying. But I think a lot more people were into her after WandaVision. So that was a cool one as far as like taking someone from way in the past who we hadn't seen in a long time and using her in that role. Now, Kim, the next one is Best New Character. Now, I think you said the contestant, so you get another shot at this.
Well, fortunately, I do have a different choice, and it's Yelena Belova for me, because Florence Pugh's great performance, but also because the character was written really well, and she brings a lot of comedy to it. But I love that and I've said this before, that she's a woman in the MCU that is allowed to be funny and capable.
Yeah, I might be saying something similar, but Lon, what about you? Who's your favorite new character so far?
I mean, it's legitimately hard to pick from Loki. There were so many people introduced. I mean, I've already given a shout out to Alligator Loki, who I think we have to sort of just put that aside. Like the MCU has its own sort of Grogu now, and I think we have to deal with that as its own issue. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of characters that I really liked. I think Sylvie maybe is at the top of the list, but I also thought Mobius was a really cool addition, and classic Loki too. I think like the additions that they made to the world in Loki in terms of the new personalities we met were definitely my favorite part of the new phase so far. I would also say, though, like a little shout out to Agatha Harkness, who, if you had asked me a few months ago who was the best new character, would probably have been my answer.
Yeah, I mean, look, character, obviously a big strength of the MCU. There's been a bunch of good ones you just mentioned. I agree on the Loki ones, although I think my favorite would be Yelena, which clearly, that was the most sort of designed to kind of be a new character that would sort of take the mantle on from a character that's kind of retiring out of the MCU. But I think a home run on that front. A lot of that, of course, the casting of Florence Pugh, but also I agree with you, Kim, as we mentioned when we did the spoiler chat about Black Widow, a really, sort of cool character and got to be funny, but in a different way that she didn't sound like other people's way of being funny and had her own quirks to her. And, sold the dramatic moments well. So definitely it's mission accomplished and making me excited to see what happens to Yelena next. And then piggybacking off that, again, because I think the characters of the MCU are such a strength of it. It's a reason that people got so invested over the past decade plus, but sort of best chemistry, because so much of it is like these sort of two-handers or giving these characters like, someone to play off of. What was your favorite sort of duo that we got throughout phase 4 so far?
Duo. Well, I was going to give a trio, but it can be a duo.
It can be a trio. It can be a trio. It's the best chemistry. It doesn't have to be a duo.
Apart from Loki, apart from Mobius and Loki, of course, I'm going to say classic Loki, Kid Loki, and Alligator Loki, because that trio
what a team!
Awesome.
Incredible.
And funny and heartwarming.
I would say, I don't know if that's a question that's going to come up later. I think that episode is the highlight of this whole phase so far for me. Would be episode 5, where they're in the void of Loki with Richard E. Grant and the alligator.
But I can't remember if I mentioned this. I don't think I did when we were talking about on this show, that my wife ordered the Alligator Loki Funko before that episode was done. Like, she was watching it and it was all in.
Yeah, obviously. I feel like the moment they digitally rendered that character on a computer screen the first time, they were like, home run. We did it. Everybody they went out for drinks that night for sure.
Move over, baby Groot.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. We've struck gold again.
So, Lon, is that the same answer or someone else for your?
Well, I mean, one we haven't highlighted yet that I thought a lot of chemistry and really livened this whole series up was when they brought Zemo into Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then you had that trio. That is like a real shot in the arm to that whole show. So much vitality, so fun to see those characters bounce off one another. I thought, Daniel Bruhl killed it, and those three had a lot of chemistry as a group. I would watch them do more adventures together for sure.
Oh, the dancing.
Yeah,
oh, yes,
I mean, just for the nightclubbing alone. Yeah.
All those are great choices. I'll also say Darcy and Jimmy, my second Darcy mention, but I thought that again has, they were serving a certain role to they had to carry a lot of exposition, but they, you already liked both of them, two very likable performers, and it was a fun dynamic between them. But I do say my very favorite is Mobius and Loki, because I think that Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, who are on paper very different performers, but you sat them down at that table together and it's like, oh wow, this is really cool, the energy between them. We've talked about how that first episode of Loki is a lot of exposition, but it's carried by these two guys having such a great sort of back and forth between them. Here's where I will do a big mashup, and maybe you can mention, Lon, what you wanted to mention here, because we had storyline that interested you the most, but we also had standout scene or sequence, but we can throw an episode there too. What is your favorite sort of like story aspect? And it can be any of those things. It can be an entire episode or a sequence or just a scene even. Like what sticks out to you most is like, dramatically or comedically speaking, a thing that you just loved seeing play out.
Well, I keep going back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I had issues with at like sort of the beginning and the end, but the Isaiah Bradley stuff in there, especially that first scene where Sam doesn't even know about him and Bucky takes her to go meet him. I thought that was really good and very interesting and not where I sort of expected that show to go. And it did have some real relevance and sort of, I don't know. I felt like it was speaking to social issues and speaking to the world in a way that was a little bit more pointed and targeted than Marvel usually does. And I really appreciated that level. And Carl Lumbly just absolutely destroyed this scene. I mean, brilliantly acted. I think that was like a real turning point in that show that made me sort of perk up and get a lot more interested.
Yeah, I kind of off the back of that, Lon, that if we talking about kind of more emotional and pertinent and relevant moments, then my mind is taken to the moment in WandaVision when Wanda visits the plot that she's set aside to build their house on with Vision, and how kind of again heartbreaking that was, and that really stands out for me. Alongside the opening credits of Black Widow for kind of similar emotion stirring reasons. The whole human trafficking theme that it addresses is dark and real, and I felt that they did it well.
I'm going to say pretty much the same thing, Kim, because to me, the two I was thinking of were the opening credits to Black Widow, which I've been thinking about a lot. And it's the one thing that I've because I do have it on Premiere Access, even though I saw it in the theater, I've gone back and watched the opening credits of that a couple times. Just been like, wow, this is a really cool sequence and very dramatic and gripping and dark. But also I would just say, kind of expanding on what you said, the entire penultimate episode of WandaVision, because I had some issues with the finale, but that entire penultimate episode kind of going through her history, it was such a standout, and so much, just the performances and really kind of getting into this inner life, which was the goal, obviously. And then I'll throw in here one little specific moment, even though I'm queuing myself up for the next thing I'm going to ask you guys, which is the reveal of Evan Peters at that door. Only because I watched that episode of WandaVision at like 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I went to sleep early, thought I'm going to watch it in the morning. Then I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, I guess I'll watch it. And then that happened, and I was like, I can't wake up my wife. I can't talk to anyone about this. So I went on Twitter because I was like, oh my God. So that just did stand out to me as just a wow, holy crap moment. But yes, I foreshadowing here, was there a storyline or plot point that was the biggest letdown for you? ... I'll you might be guessing where I'm going. What about you guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll let you talk about that then, Eric, because that was definitely one. But I'd say for me, actually, although and it had its positives, and I'm not saying that it was a bad show, but the whole of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, especially in comparison with WandaVision and Loki. It definitely had its positives, but a major issue for me was that it was kind of billed as a buddy cop comedy, and actually Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie didn't show their comedy chops at all, and I'm not sure it was. I mean, there were moments in the script, but it kind of fell flat for me.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking just a disappointing moment, like one moment, I would say the Black Widow post-credit scene when you see who the person is on the tablet that Val is sending Yelena after. It's like, ooh, she's going to try to take out one of our beloved Marvel characters. Who's it going to be? Hawkeye. It's just like, of all the people it could have been, I feel like they went with the least interesting angle. The other one, and this is going to be a controversial hot take, I was a little let down by the Loki finale. I know we got this introduction to this big comic book character. Everybody's very excited. I like Jonathan Majors. He did a nice job. It's not a personal slight against him or his performance. I really was into Loki, and I was looking forward to a final episode that was going to tie a lot of the Loki threads together, give us a lot of Loki and Sylvie and Mobius and Renslayer, and get us further down the field with them. And then we really didn't. We kind of hit pause on all that stuff till season 2 and introduced all of this He Who Remains business. And it was fun. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was a letdown for me. It wasn't where I was sort of primed for that episode to go. And I thought it was really talky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's funny. All three of these shows, I didn't like. The finale was not my favorite episode of any of them.
No, I feel like all three, they had a real problem with now the fifth or the second to last episode wraps up the season. And then the last one feels way too much like bridge the gap to the next thing.
Yeah, agreed. Although I will defend Hawkeye on the tablet. I think I like Hawkeye a lot more than you, but B, I do think he just makes sense, like dramatically speaking, with the history of Natasha.
Imagine like, okay, it was Rocket on that tablet. How much more excited are you immediately?
Okay, that would have been amazing.
Immediately be like, oh, now I gotta see where this goes.
And it's like this will continue in the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas
how's
special.
How's she even gonna get up there? Well, I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
Would have been amazing. But yeah, my biggest letdown overall is the Ralph Boner of it all. And I get all the arguments about, well, of course it wasn't gonna be the X-Men movies Quicksilver, and of course it's the one place where I feel like manipulated with too much. Like I get all the like, well, it's a joke on recasting and it's just, and yes, all of that is true within the framework of they knew exactly what they were doing by putting Evan Peters in there. And it's too much of a tease of something that we're all waiting to see how they're going to do. How will the X-Men come into the MCU? Will there be any acknowledgement of that other universe? There could be. A multiverse is coming. And it was the one time I felt like they were toying with this too much. Like, you know, there's other things where I thought people were like, you know, making up their own stuff, but this one was like, you wanted us to go down this road, and it was, and because the actual reveal was like, it's just a dude and his name is Boner. Yeah, I wanted more.
So
more
funny
than
though.
That. Ralph Boner. I mean, hey, maybe you can go on to some very important things here. We'll see. A favorite villain. This is an interesting one because the MCU in general takes the knock that like great characters, we love these people. Villains in general have not always been their strong suit, with a couple of standouts. Loki in the past has certainly been one. I think a lot of people were into Thanos, but in these shows, and I know villain is a nebulous term, and some of these characters flat out turn into good guys, and some of them ride the line a little more. But who was your favorite antagonist so far in Phase 4?
I mean, I'm gonna definitely not Dreykov. I'm going to say He Who Remains, because I you know, many people did anticipated an appearance from a version of Kang. Hi, Taco.
Look at that tail go.
Very excited to be here.
And I was really looking forward to it. And he came in and you know, I kind of wanted to punch the air, and he was a brilliant, you know, Jonathan Majors put in a brilliant performance, in my opinion. I know some people felt that he was a little over the top. I thought he did great, and I want to see well, you know, maybe not more from He Who Remains. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm so much looking forward to where the character of Kang goes in the future, and seeing Jonathan Majors switch up his performance. So yeah, I like how they introduced him and the possibilities for the future.
Paco?
I already gave a shout out to Agatha Harkness, but I feel like you'd have to bring Catherine Hahn back into the mix here. Definitely having the most fun, I think, in this phase so far with her villain character. She has a very catchy theme song that I think we all still kind of have in our heads. And just, yeah, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people, myself included, like in a comic book Marvel villain. It's that joie de vivre. She's not just an angry man with a large hammer standing and with, ooh, I'm going to get those Kree or whatever. Or I guess he is a Kree, but you know what I mean. It's lively. It's fun. She's delighting in her evil. It's an over the top fun, engaging chords. Catherine Hahn's been great, and it sort of brought her all of this new attention, which was a lot of fun. I would also say from Loki, Miss Minutes was like a presence you didn't think of as a villain that became sort of gradually more sinister. And I also just really like the idea of Kang like sitting, you know, on Adobe learning motion graphics so he can create Miss Minutes, because obviously his new company, the TVA, is going to need a logo and a mascot. So yeah.
Yeah, Agatha is definitely my runner-up. She was great. And yes, I'm all about the Catherine Renaissance. I think my favorite is, interestingly, and I felt like I can't say Sylvie because so quick, once we really met her, so quickly things turned with her. So yeah, she was great character. But once she was actually like kind of an on-screen presence, not hooded, she was not really an antagonist. I would actually say, interestingly, John Walker, only because I don't like what they did with him in the last 20 minutes of the finale, where I thought way too quickly he was suddenly like part of the team and kind of turned back into a comedic character. I realized that could change when we see him again. But for the brunt of Falcon Winter Soldier, which again is my least favorite of those three shows so far, and I think had the most problems, I actually thought they were doing a lot of really interesting things with him. I thought Wyatt Russell was great when he actually like crosses the line and kills that guy in front of everyone, and the bloody shield and sort of showing his breakdown was all really interesting. And the idea that he's not like an evil person, but he's kind of not the right person to be wearing that uniform, all really good stuff. Didn't like what they did in the last 20 minutes, but still, you know, overall thought the character was a really interesting one.
Yeah, they kind of did all of their villains dirty in the last episode, because like I really liked Carly Morgenthau as well as a villain, but then in the end she just has this like heel turn where it's like, well, now I've just got to kill this whole van full of people, and it's like that's not who you were in every episode up until now. So yeah, I feel like they didn't do their villains any favors in that last episode by kind of trying to artificially get people into places it doesn't feel like they would go. But I agree. Both of those characters I thought were really effective for most of those shows.
I'm going to skip a few of these so we can get some of these little follow-up questions here, but I have a couple I'll do before we do that, which is just what was your favorite? You know, I think I kind of know, but from what you guys have been saying, but of the three series, which has been your favorite so far?
Yeah, Loki. Because it's been the most consistently entertaining for me, and also has opened up the widest possibilities, and has had will have the biggest impact on the MCU as a whole in the movies going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Loki was the most fun. It was the most like cinematic and visually interesting. I thought it felt like the most epic scale. It moved things forward the most. And yeah, it was just filled with a lot of personalities and ideas I really enjoyed spending a lot of time with. So yeah, for sure.
I'll be the one person to go in a different direction, even though I loved Loki. But I will say just favorite, even though it's one of those things where if I said best versus favorite, maybe I'd say Loki is best. But personal favorite is WandaVision still. And I think that might just be something about it kind of just being my jam. Like just what they were doing, the jumping through the decades, the evoking the different eras, the TV shows, stylistically. I was so into all that. and loved the central performances, especially Elizabeth Olsen. So even though Loki did so many great things as well, and visually was awesome, WandaVision just it's a slight edge for me, even though I think they were both very imaginative in their totality. And then let me just ask, we know a lot of upcoming stuff, obviously, that's been announced, movies, TV shows. Now that you've seen all these, what is the one you're most looking forward to of the announced slate for the rest of Phase 4?
I mean, for me, and I don't think any of the series have changed this, but it's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because I love the first movie. It's one of my favorites of the MCU, and I'm just really excited to see what Sam Raimi brings to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very excited to check out. Is Moon Knight, that show, is that Phase 4 or is that Phase 5?
It's Phase 4.
That's definitely the thing that's on my radar, is like one of the, like way back at the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they were still like, we're going to make a Thor movie. I was like, maybe one day they'll get to Moon Knight, one of the few Marvel characters I really know well. And then for like 15 years, nothing happened, but we're finally going to get back there. Oscar Isaac, such perfect casting. I'm very excited for that. As far as the films go, obviously Thor, Love and Thunder, very excited to see where that goes. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is this huge question mark still, but with that cast, Ryan Coogler, obviously they're going to come up with something super interesting and fun. I can't wait. But yeah, I think Doctor Strange 2 is also the one that I'm probably the most keyed into on the film side. Just really the combination of Doctor Strange as a character, all this crazy multiverse stuff we know is happening, and then yes, Sam Raimi returning to comic book filmmaking. How can you not be excited about that?
I will make it 3 for 3 on the Doctor Strange front. Not to say I won't be, all excited when we get a Spider-Man trailer and a Thor trailer. But yeah, Doctor Strange, just the combination of the director and the property and the fact that it'll be following up a lot of these things. Also, I just tweeted the other day, I kind of love that we don't know almost anything about it and that the cast list is so small on IMDb. When there's got to be a million other people in it, we can guess who some of them might be, but we don't know if we're right.
Well, if he's jumping between realities, they may not want to let us know all the people he'll be encountering.
That's a good guess. But yeah, just a lot of things about that one. And then my Strange series one, even though there's a lot of fun ones coming up, and I'm excited for She-Hulk and Moon Knight, but there's something about, even though we know almost nothing about it, I'm excited for Armor Wars, maybe because I like Don Cheadle a lot, and he's one of those guys who's been in the MCU for so long, but they never give Rhodey like an interior life. Like, right. He got, he lost the use of his legs, but he only got like 2 seconds of screen time to even acknowledge that. So there's just something about that I like, okay, he's finally his turn to like be the star of one of these
finally
things.
War Machine is going to get some more stories to tell when they have big Avenger parties.
Exactly.
Because his tank boom, you're looking for this one, doesn't go over that well.
Oh, maybe that's the final line of the show, like second War Machine story. We go out on that. Yeah. So that's the other one. A couple of just follow-up questions here, which is just that now that we've seen these shows, what do you think about sort of the format of them? And I'll merge these two. Is there anything you'd like to see them sort of change about like the either the way they structure them or how they parse them out? What do you think of the Disney Plus MCU shows, how they're structured so far?
I mean, the biggest thing for me would be I'd love to see them just drop them all at once. I think all of these series would work better if you could binge them. Where you watch something like The Mandalorian, that worked really well. The episodes were self-contained, but also kind of tied into a wider arc. But you were happy to wait week to week, I think, while also looking forward to the next episode. These ones work better as a whole.
I get what they're doing. They have to make these shows that exist as these kinds of self-contained bubbles. Like they can advance your understanding. They could give you added context. They could give you more about what's going on with these characters, but they can't totally move things forward in a way that you couldn't easily explain in a movie, because they know that the shows complement the films and maybe not everybody's seeing everything. So you could like introduce Kang, but then that version of him still has to die so he could be reintroduced to him in a film. And I get that we're not going to be able to like change that. Like that's how it has to work to keep the movies and the shows going at once. But it does make me wish that they had some concepts for shows that weren't so closely tied in to the main action. Like I'm looking forward to stuff like Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight, where we can use these shows to start really introducing new corners of this world that we haven't previously explored, because all the shows we've gotten so far are like centerpiece characters of the MCU. It's like Wanda and Vision, Falcon and Winter. Like these are all Avengers or main Avenger adversaries at the center of these shows. So it might be nice to have a character like She-Hulk or Ms. Marvel, where they're kind of more on the periphery of the central events of the Marvel universe, and we could just get a feel for more of the day-to-day. Like, I'm really looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree on that. I basically, I think, that will give, like, Moon Knight can be our opportunity to see them trafficking in the world that the Netflix Marvel shows did.
Right.
It's like
street level.
Street level. Let's see what their take is on that. And I think it helps. I love the interconnected stuff, but I also want them to just be able to have some characters that aren't as heavily, and of course, eventually they can meet everyone, but can kind of exist on their own a little more. I'm all about the weekly release though, Kim. Gotta disagree with you on that. Because I love the discourse, besides the fact that it gives us individual episodes of SJU. But I do love that it gives you that like week to chew on it. And even though sometimes people go crazy with the speculation, I do kind of like the fun of that. I'm curious. This is just a curiosity I have going forward. Is I noticed after Loki, they're not having a single director for any of these shows, which I have a feeling is probably just they realized it was too much. Like every director has said it was a lot. I came out of it very exhausted because it was like directing one of their movies, except that it was like went on for months and months and months.
Right. Yeah.
So I am curious to see if that will make these feel a little different now that we're getting 2 or 3 directors I see for most of the upcoming shows.
There is something interesting happening on these shows as well, in that most shows are doing still with like, they have a showrunner structure.
Yeah.
So there's like the showrunner is also the head writer, and they're kind of setting the direction. And then the directors come and go week to week and kind of follow the plan that's already in motion. And these are Feige's really kind of running things. Yeah. And then you have these 2 positions that are kind of sharing responsibility, the head writer and then the director who's directing the whole show. And I feel like that may be what they're trying to move away from, because we even heard about on Loki, there were some pretty serious disagreements between Kate Herron, who was doing the directing, and Michael Waldron, who was doing the scripting. And I feel like if you bring in different directors week to week, but you have that one consistent head show writer, you have that one consistent head writer for the show, you're kind of recalibrating it a little bit. And so the decision-making chain goes a little bit more back to normal, instead of Feige having these kind of dueling collaborators that he has to be mediating.
Yeah, because traditionally it's like movies, the director is the last call, but TV, the showrunner is the last call.
Right, you'd be like the Shonda Rhimes, and it's Grey's Anatomy, and it's like up to you what happens, and everybody else is following your lead. And it's not as much that on these Marvel shows. I mean, Feige is that person.
Yeah.
But then you've got other collaborators, and I feel like that might be difficult, if it's like the 2 people. Like, I think one of the fundamental things was like, how much should this be a romance between Loki and Sylvie? Like, Waldron was very, very into that. And, so those are the kind of things that you have to have a deciderer on set on some level.
The decider,
as George W. Bush would say.
That's another name for Kang. Guys, thank you so much for watching as we discuss all the MCU. And please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel for videos every weekday. Hit that like and hit that bell for us. We appreciate it. We'll do some news roundup here. Guess what? We have some Marvel news in the news roundup. Shocking. Which is, it looks like, while they say the deal's not set, that we might have a director for Blade. Which rumor, if you looked at the schedule for the MCU, there was originally a movie scheduled for, I think it was October next year, that's been bumped a year. And it's like that had to have been Blade, just the timing. It seems it took a little longer to come together, but it looks like Bassam Tariq is in talks to direct the Blade movie. He is best known for a movie I have not seen. Lon, sometimes you're often my hope on these things, having seen like a lot of the cool indie stuff.
I've got prep for this, so we'll find out in real time.
Okay, the Riz Ahmed film Mogul Mowgli. Did you see?
I haven't. What a disappointment.
You know, I haven't either, although I'm kind of fascinated because I was reading about it and its plot line sounds so similar to Sound of Metal, and it came out last year because it's like Riz Ahmed plays a rapper who gets like a medical condition and goes on a trip after he gets a medical.
Really?
I was like, whoa. Yeah. So we can't speak to this director, but I think we all want a good Blade movie.
I'm assuming that one must have been impressive if they saw it and were like, get that guy for Blade, you know?
And it follows their pattern, right, of getting talented indie directors who are good with actors, and they're like, don't worry, we'll handle the effects. You know, right. we can handle that. But speaking of that, and speaking of someone we were just talking about, is Kate Herron is not returning for Loki season 2. She did a bunch of interviews this past week, including one I did with her. And, in some of these interviews, she had talked about how they decided pretty late that Loki was even coming back for season 2. And she said, she basically talked about how, though they did talk about returning, it had been a lot. It sounded like she kind of needed a break because she talks about maybe working with Marvel again, but just not for Loki season 2. What do you guys think about her not returning for the return of the show?
Yeah, that's disappointing news because, as I've said, it was my favorite of the 3 series, and I think she's done a brilliant job with it. But in terms of injecting new life into these series, it's exciting as well. It's good. It's also good news. The one thing I was going to say was as long as Natalie Holt returns to compose the score.
Yes. Agreed.
That's my main call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's always disappointing when a show you really like they're going to mix up the creative team. It's like, oh, it's so hard to find that kind of chemistry, and it works and it all comes together. And yeah, I thought she did a great job. But I'm sure they'll find somebody good to come in and take over the reins. Like, I don't think it's like a potential show ruining change, but I did think that the scale of Loki does feel a step. I'm sure she had a similar budget, but it feels a step above, I thought, the other shows. And even, it didn't to me feel that different from how a Marvel film would feel when the TVA feels, suitably impressive. And they're working on, the edges of the Marvel universe that we've yet experienced. And at no point did that feel like it's a shrunk down TV version of any of these things. And that's not easy to do.
I thought she did a terrific job with it. I loved the direction on that show. There was lots of great sequences. The one with obviously her and Sylvie and Loki, that was, the oneer. Granted, it wasn't a real oneer that I watched the making of that came out this morning for Loki, and they talked about doing that scene, and they talked about Alligator Loki. She did a great job, but I think it also speaks to, unfortunately, it is gonna, we talked about how they're switching it up so they're not having one director, but also it's the price to pay for how these things move, and they can't wait. She can't be like, I'd love to do Loki season 2. Can we wait a year? It's like, no, we're moving forward, and that's probably a factor as well.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. In non-Marvel news, there was a trailer yesterday for a very important film called Jackass Forever. Just wanted to get, guys, what is your thoughts on seeing the legacy of Jackass return for this film?
Who is this film for, Eric? Is it for you? Yeah, you're excited.
And that
guy. You, Lon? Sorry. It's not
me personally.
It's not me. Although I would say that's a very politician thing to say. I would say they always say that. I would say that the sequences in the trailer that did have me wincing were the ones with the animals. So I guess I'm maybe I could just watch those bits.
Lon, it sounds like you're in for Jackass.
Oh my God! I think there's 2 levels to it now. Like, I've always I like the show. I've been on board from the beginning. I've always thought these guys were funny, and I liked watching them hurt themselves and do stunts for my amusement. But now I think you're adding on, it's almost like a Richard Linklater thing or like the 7-Up documentary series at this point. Like we've now followed these guys doing stunts and hurting themselves for our delight and pleasure for over 20 years. It gotta be like 25 years or something. So at this point, that is part of the story, that it's not only just, hey, we're gonna go out and like let a bull knock us over or get shot with a bunch of stuff, or like it's you're watching the culmination of this whole lifetime and career of doing this, and about the decision to do it again and what's going through their minds while they do this in their 40s, and Knoxville's approaching age 50. And I think that adds this fascinating and like, in a weird way, emotionally resonant layer to this whole thing. Like it makes it more like a movie where you're going to watch these guys go out and, almost kill themselves again for a fourth time, even at this very advanced stage, way beyond the point when you would think a stunt performer would still go out there and try it again.
Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, even when the third one came out, I remember being like, "Oh man, these guys are getting older. Maybe they should stop doing this." Now they're doing this new one.
Knoxville's gone totally gray. Preston Lacey looks like an old man in this trailer. Yes. It's amazing.
And it's funny in the trailer because you can see, and I think it's because they shot a little bit before COVID and then they came back. So he's not gray for all of it because he stopped dyeing his hair. He did that interview where he talked about it. But there is something, because they embrace that clearly. They're talking very upfront about their age. And because they lean into it, it's like, this can be the Logan of Jackass movies,
That's exactly what it is.
And I was like, this stupid movie is going to make me probably cry at the end, isn't it? Because they're going to have some poignant montage. And it's going to be
100%. There's no chance. There's no chance I'm not going to cry during this movie.
Right. So kudos to you, Jackass, for what you're doing. And kudos on that title, because Jackass Forever indeed. Last news story here is will there ever be an end to the diesel rock wars? We lived through them, guys. No. It's so funny and look back on the history of this, and like it got so public, this feud between Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel with the Fast and Furious movies. It seemed like they were trying to squash it publicly when Hobbs and Shaw came out, because they both did like nice social posts to each other. But then Vin Diesel's got a Vin Diesel, and he did that interview a few weeks ago where he had that amazing quote where he talked about how he had to help shape Dwayne Johnson's performance in Fast 5, and he'll use any methods he needs to. And his quote was, "I wouldn't call it Fellini-esque, but that he pushed him to get his performance."
It is worth pointing out that The Rock had already been in films for like a decade. Almost a decade. Like, it wasn't like, I think a lot of people read that in like the timelines. Maybe they were like, I guess that was one of Dwayne Johnson's first films. It was not.
No, because Vin Diesel's like, he was coming from the wrestling world. He made sound like, this was
very well established in many other films and franchises.
That was the point of bringing him into Fast 5.
Right. He was franchised Viagra by that.
Right. Yeah. An established action star. But they asked Dwayne Johnson about it in a THR interview that he did with Emily Blunt for Jungle Cruise.
Because he did for Jungle Cruise, right?
Yeah. And he just said, he said, "I saw it, of course. I laughed, and I laughed hard. I think everyone had a laugh at that, and I'll leave it at that." And then he said a very sort of passive aggressive thing of like, "I wish them luck with Fast 9, and I wish them luck with Fast 10 and 11, which they'll be doing without me." The ones that are doing without me. So has Diesel once again ruined our chances of seeing Hobbs return to the family, guys? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you going to say the same, Lon?
I was going to say probably, unless I feel like we could get one more scene where they shoot it like that one from 6, where they're like near each other, but clearly not making eye contact, maybe not even on set. Like if they've done a few shots where they faked them obviously not being in the same room, and they just
8, they were never together in 8.
Right.
Like,
well, there's even in 7, there's that part where he visits him in the hospital, and you could tell from the reverse shot that that is another bald man's back of the head. That is not Vin Diesel. So I feel like we could get something like that where they fake it. I don't think these two gentlemen are ever by their own volition going to be in the same room again. I don't think so. I think that would be bad for everybody.
Yeah, I do think I'm on the never say never train, as far as like, because it, again, it really says something here to me that this became so public, because Dwayne Johnson is so savvy and so good with his image. So he must have had some real issues for some of the stuff he was saying a couple years ago about, unprofessional and
You've
all
seen
that.
that scene at the end of 6. They can't look at each other.
Oh, yeah.
They're supposed to be doing a scene and they're each staring off in a totally different direction.
Right.
They cannot stand to look at each other.
8 is so funny because it's like, they sat Hobbs at the furthest end of the table so they could just shoot him separately.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that being said, he is a smart, savvy guy. And because I think, he will hear the fans, I will still not be surprised if he shows up for a scene or two in 11. If they stick to 11 being the last one, for the fans thing, even though, like you said, Lon, they never need to step foot on the same soundstage at the same time. If
they ever do, there will be a meta joke in the movie about how they don't like each other. Sure.
And I tweeted this morning that if they ever shoot a scene together for this, someone will say Fellini-esque.
Definitely they would not do it without a wink and a nod to let you know that they were hip to it.
Right.
How when rock stars fall out and the band splits up, and then 25, 30, 40 years later, however long, they are persuaded to get back together for one last concert. Maybe that will happen.
Maybe they're the Noel and Liam Gallagher of filmmaking.
That's never going to happen. They're never going to be back in the same room.
Never
go that far.
It will never be an Oasis reunion.
Well, guys, thank you very much. We have one more thing for you, which is Kim did the junket for Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins. Kim, would you like to set this up a little bit? What you talked to them about?
Yeah, so we did a little poll with our G.I. Joe community, Joepedia, and asked them who the fans preferred to see Storm Shadow on the side of, so Cobra or Joe's, because he flip-flops between the two in the comics.
Yes.
And Snake Eyes, the movie, is all about, in part, his relationship with Snake Eyes. So, and then we put the results of that poll, which I won't spoil here, to the cast of Snake Eyes and got their reactions to it. So it's interesting stuff.
Well, thank you so much for that, guys. Check that out right now, and we'll be back later this week. Thanks a lot.
For 600 years, our ninja have brought peace to the world. I believe in you.
All right, what do I have to do?
We asked the guys at Joepedia, which is our G.I. Joe community, which side they preferred to see Storm Shadow on, whether they preferred him Cobra or Joe. What do you think they said?
Cobra. I don't know. I'm not sure now, but I need to say Cobra.
I probably think I would veer personally. I think Cobra. Did they say Joe's?
I would say they prefer him being on Cobra because you can't have a yin without the yang. And I think this is probably the most troublesome brotherhood written in any sort of element of comic books, and one of the most iconic. So to sort of have them waver once in a while and fight for the same cause, I love that, but you can't have that if they're both on the same side the entire time. You can't have them on the same side. It's not as exciting as when they do finally arrive together for a particular thing. Like, that's where it's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Storm Shadow is such a, tormented character, and he has so much depth. He's not just a bad guy or a good guy, he's so complex, and I think that's what's really fascinating about the character. So I agree with them.
I think maybe during the time that he was with Cobra, there's more interest, there's more turmoil maybe going on inside him, and there's more, I think that's maybe what is more interesting, the layers that you can do going into it. But yeah, so that's a nuanced conversation. So good versus evil. What's better?
And have a guess at what the percentage split was.
70-30.
Oh, close. So 65-35.
65-35, okay. I've read your reports, Kim. I'm right. Wow, okay, that's cool. But I think there's sometimes the interesting thing is that, I don't know what makes Storm Shadow interesting, the fact that he goes from either side. He's not just good or bad. It's like he's someone who's kind of goes in between both. That's quite rich, to explore, I guess.
Oh, I would say 80-20.
Ooh, I'd say it was quite drastic. Maybe 30-70.
Oh, that's exactly what Andrew said, but you're
yeah.
close. It was 35-65.
Okay, interesting.
I'm surprised about that.
You're surprised that it was so low or high?
I mean, no, I'm on that side, to be honest. I think life is funnier when you do bad things. Just sometimes, you know. It's so boring.
Comment.
Glide.
I think when you watch the movie, you realize the strength of bond that they built within this particular movie, and that's really important moving forward because you need to understand the mechanics of who they are as people, but also why it's so intense and why it means so much to them. And I think moving on from this movie, to be able to explore more of that, but with different dynamics, is the exciting part.